Hello and welcome to our second Menander dev diary for Imperator Rome, and this is a juicy one that I think you are going to enjoy. So, this one's written by Trintragula, and as I said, it is the second of our dev diaries. In the first one we got a little bit of an overview of culture and rebellion changes, among some other things. And just expanding on certain areas of that. So let's just get into it. And already I'm sure you can see on the screen there's something interesting coming up. So, hello and welcome to another dev diary from Imperator Rome and the features of the upcoming Menander update. Today I'll be talking about some of the changes we're bringing to cultures and how it interacts with countries, pops and characters. Before that, however, I would like to introduce the new pop type that the Menander update will bring. We have the nobles. So, before we talk about the nobles though, there is something a little bit hidden in this screenshot that, is probably meant to be seen. I feel like it seems fairly deliberate, but at the same time, some people may have missed it. I'm helping you guys out by showing you that Phrygia here doesn't start with a P. It starts with an A. They've renamed Phrygia to the Antigonids, or Antigonid Empire. We don't know yet. And the reason I think this is deliberately shown is because we're currently hovered over the Civic Empire, and only the A is visible, so it kind of looks like they've intentionally moved the map to be facing this exact point, so that the tooltip for the nobles is covering most, but not all, of Phrygia's name. I love it. I so love it. Yes. Oh, it felt all weird with Phrygia being a thing, but we're finally getting them renamed to the Antagonids. Ah, oh, fantastic. Anyway, so, yes, we have the noble, and he's got a fairly interesting little pop thing. It's quite interesting. I like it. He's got a nice little toga on, his red undershirt. It's cool. So yeah, we've got the noble. So what do the nobles do? In the Menander update, we'll be adding a new pop type at the top of the societal hierarchy. In Rome's, these would be the patrician class, but nobles are by no means unique to Roman society. We'll likely be expanding on what nobles do in the future, but for now each noble will produce the same amount of commerce as a great number of citizens, meaning that if they are happy, they could bring in quite a bit of gold. Nobles, however, will be very hard to please, with a base pop happiness of negative 10%, and rare with a base desired ratio of 0 in all territories except country capitals. So, what that means is, you're not going to have a whole lot of them. If we go back to the Seleucid Empire here, he has 37, despite having a pop number of, over 3,000. That is a very, very small amount. Having their happiness go down quite significantly as well. Average happiness only 25%. That's kind of rough. I also very, very much love what they've done to this UI. I am so in favor of this, showing that instead of, the face is a little bit sadder, therefore he is less happy. No, we've now got a sliding bar, and the sadder they are, the more the face will move down here, and it will slowly, gradually turn into a sad face. I love this. I love this so much. It makes me so happy to see these UI changes that are actually, good, instead of UI changes that are bad map modes. Fantastic. These are very interesting. And I'm wondering as well, will we have buildings that will increase the amount of nobles we can have maybe in capital only or provincial capital only buildings? Palaces and government houses, law courts, that kind of thing. These might be buildings that you could only build in a country or provincial capital, and they might have a tiny increase to the amount of nobles you may can have there. So yeah, no, I like it. It's cool. So the happiness of a noble pop also impacts unrest much more than that of the other pop types, meaning that you may also want to consider importing expensive luxuries like gems or precious metals to keep them happy. The court building will now also increase the desired ratio and happiness of nobles. Okay, so I did read this dev diary before I started recording. I guess I just forgot about this line because I was so happy about this. Well, my bad. So, yeah, the unrest from a noble is much, much higher than it is for the other pops, and it looks like 2 trade goods here are being changed around to be, noble happiness trade goods. So if we have a look into the game right now, let's just launch up a new game real quick. What we might end up seeing, well, precious metals. Right now, the bonus for having 2 of them in your capital is a conversion bonus, or an assimilation bonus for cultures. That seems like with the culture update, it's a bit out of date, so I can definitely see why they've changed that to the noble one, but I've actually forgotten what gems do, so we are going to just chuck ourselves into Rome real quick, because I would like to figure out what do gems do. Civilization level, some taxes, okay. Precious metals give territory provincial loyalty, okay, and then there's the pop assimilation speed. So yeah, having these 2 change to be noble goods, that makes sense. What I will say is, when I read this part, you may want to consider importing expensive luxuries like gems or precious metals. It got me thinking, why are they calling them expensive? Because on the one hand, it could be just that gems and precious metals, in-game logic, they're expensive items, right? But in game terms, mechanically speaking, they're no more expensive than any other trade good in the world. Maybe they're a little bit more rare, especially for gemstones, depending on where you are in the world, of course. But a trade route doesn't give you any extra money based on the trade good. Goods don't have any values. They're just trade routes, and the trade routes giving you money based on I think it's the civilization value of your trade partner. If this is hinting at costs and importing expensive luxuries, like, are you going to really have to spend money to import things? Because if so, some people are going to hate that. I would fucking love that. That hints at a really big trade overhaul, which the game, in my opinion, kind of needs. On the one hand, I really want a trade overhaul. On the other hand, I think a trade overhaul is worth its own season. So right now we're in the season, or the summer of culture. We're going to have the autumn of war. I think trade is enough to be like its own, winter of trade, or maybe spring of trade if winter is already taken up by something else. I think it's probably a big enough overhaul to be called a season of its own and not be a smaller part of something else's season. But I really want a trade overhaul, so I'm taking anything I can get right now. So the court building will increase the desired ratio and happiness of nobles. I also really want a building overhaul, especially after playing the Bronze Age mod, which is actually phenomenal, and the way that they handle buildings is, really good. So a building overhaul would be nice, please. Court building, like, they shouldn't be just in any city. They should probably just be in the provincial capital, the provincial court system. Maybe it could be done. It could be done. It could be great. Anyway, let's move down to the Antigonid Empire, or Antigonid Kingdom, who knows. So, we have here the average happiness of 18% for the nobles, increasing unrest by 0.42. Honestly, it seemed like this guy was... happiness was 5. Okay, happiness of 1 here. Well, these guys are much less happy than these guys. Are you importing something, perhaps? I can tell that you're not, but you might be. Interesting. Having a look around as well, they're not teasing any new map modes here yet. I assume there's probably going to be some map modes. There usually is a map mode or two that they could possibly add. Right, but other than that, everything is looking fairly standard. This is a massively welcome change. I love this a lot. But yeah, no, that's really cool. On the start, not many nobles exist in the world. The ones that do will be spread out in capitals and to some extent in the former Persian and Argead Empire. Lovely. So they're going to be, just in the capitals and some cities, major cities. I like it. Cultural happiness and cultural integration. So going a bit more into culture. Up until now, the only way for a country in Imperator to rule a large and diverse empire has been to culturally assimilate the vast majority of pops under your control, until they're no longer a diverse empire. This is in stark contrast to most empires in the real world, perhaps with the notable exception of Rome itself. We'll get back to this. Where multi-ethnic empires were often the norm, and instead chose to integrate the various conquered groups into the power structures in their society. In the Menander update, a system for integrating cultures will be added, as well as a system of bestowing civic rights on the pops of a culture, regulating how high pops of that culture can promote. If civic rights are at citizen or noble level, all pops of that culture will be treated as a part of your own state culture. The price for this in the short term will be destabilizing the state, and in the long term cost permanently lower happiness for all state culture and integrated culture pops. Now, that is a lot to unpack. So, what I am thinking this is, or the way that I am understanding this is, you're Rome, you've expanded into Greece, you are you've got a bunch of new culture groups. The most obvious being the Hellenic one. So if you want to, you can say, okay, so the Hellenic pops, they are going to be on par with Romans. While they are being integrated, it seems like it's going to take some time, you'll get some destabilization, possibly from events, and maybe demands are being made of you. And once you have got them up to this level where they are equal, on par to Romans, so that they can be, they can also be nobles, they can also be citizens, then you'll get a permanent happiness debuff to all of your state culture, which will be, your primary Roman culture and your new Greek culture. They'll get a permanent happiness debuff. I don't know if they say how much that debuff is going to be, but that's to stop you from saying, everyone can be integrated. It's a soft cap of sorts. So I guess it makes sense. It's fairly decent. I like it. It's all right. It's cool. Yeah, permanently lower happiness for state culture and integrated culture pops. All right, lovely. So yeah, if you're a citizen or a noble level, all pops of that culture be treated as part of your own state culture. So that basically says that you can choose that they can be, nobles and citizens, or you can choose that they're a little bit worse, they can only be freemen, or you can choose, they can only be slaves because, fuck the Carthaginians. Salt and all that. So this is the culture mock-up thing that they've got. While this feature is in the process of implementation, we can still offer this mock-up of what we want the future interface to look like. So we've got some Etruscans here. They're of the Italic culture group. You can filter them by integrated and non-integrated. You can filter them by culture group. I like that. Etruscan is currently ticking up. I guess once you get here, then you are at full integration. These bars, I'm guessing, is something like once you get to this bar, you get an event, maybe, or if you're selecting this bar, then they can be at a max a slave or a tribesman. If you select this one, they can be a freeman. If you select all the way to the end, maybe they can be, freemen and nobles, perhaps. I don't know. But yeah, at the moment he's chosen Etruscans to be civic rights of citizen. Alright. The Messapians are integrated, so they can be most nobles. The Umbrians integrated at citizen level. Lacanians are integrated at freeman level. The Ratians are integrated at tribal level. And is there something here about the max loyalty? Because if Roman is at 40.45, all numbers are going to obviously be a work in progress. I doubt they've been solidified yet, especially in this kind of mock-up. But what it looks like, he's got 3 integrated cultures. And that's... I hope that hasn't tanked him by like 20% each, because that would suck. I will say, though, this might be worrying to some people, but at the same time, there's still a lot of ways that you can buff up your primary culture happiness, and that will apply to your integrated cultures as well. Yeah, so it's not as big of a problem as you might otherwise think. All right, cool. Civic rights and cultural happiness. In the Menander, each culture inside your country will have an individual civic right set. This right can be set to any of the pop types in the game, slave, tribes, and freeman, citizen, or noble, and will control the highest level a pop of the given culture is allowed to promote. Default right, i.e. the rights of newly acquired cultures, will start set at freeman level, but can be set to either freemen, slaves, tribesmen by the player. Existing pops that are above their allowed status will in time demote to the highest pop type allowed for their culture. Changing civic rights of a culture will have a one-time cost of political influence, but more importantly, it will impact the cultural happiness of the culture. So cultural happiness, what is this? Together with the reimagining of integrated cultures in the Archimedes update, we will remove the concept of blanket wrong culture happiness and wrong culture group happiness, which is super interesting because in the latest patch, they changed Massalia to be wrong culture group happiness, whereas before it was just wrong culture happiness. After, I believe it was Heshinshin had complained about it incessantly for months. They change it, and then immediately after they're announcing that, you know what, we don't like it. Wrong culture and wrong culture group happiness. Who gives a shit? It's gone. Bye bye. Instead, every country will have a happiness value for each culture in the game, and will have to manage the happiness of its subjects as a group. Cultural happiness will start out similar to the old system, but over time, through your actions, these will change on an individual culture basis, and will also be affected by the civic right that a culture is given in your country. While you will be able to interact with the happiness of the cultures in your country through events, and by granting them privileges through decisions and the like, the most significant impact on cultural happiness will be the civic right of the culture both in itself, as pops promote or demote, since pops have different base happiness ratings, but also as the pops and characters of the culture as a whole react to the rights it's given, or has been taken away. Alright. I feel like, as well, this could be very interesting, right? This, or rights it's been given. This could be very interesting, say, if you are playing as some kind of Persian nation. Say you're playing as Atropatene, and you manage to do really well, and you conquer a bunch of Seleucid territory that is majority Persian. Say the Seleucids have them as, freemen only. But these guys, they're of your culture. They're your people. They're Persian, after all. When you conquer them, you're going to want to make them, citizens, because, let's be fair, they are your people. They're the same. And there's probably going to be quite a lot of them. They're going to be very happy that you've given them more rights than they previously had. And that's a very interesting concept. Pops can be this sort of I'm imagining liberation wars. Like, you have a bunch of pops of an integrated culture of mine, and you're mistreating them. I'm going to liberate them, and it's not just going to be a roleplay thing. The game's actually going to respond to this. Because you might already have them integrated. And so when you conquer an area that these pops are, Max Freeman or something, they're immediately going to be an accepted culture instead of, going to Freeman Max or, not an integrated culture. That's super interesting. That is really, really interesting. There's quite a lot of potential here. So, integrated cultures. Cultural happiness is not the only thing in the Menander update that will regulate the happiness of the cultures in your country. The game will also make a distinction between those cultures that are integrated and those that are not. An integrated culture is a culture that has the civic rights set to promote to citizens or nobles, and this makes that culture part of the elite in your country. Each integrated culture will reduce the state culture happiness by 5% and exempt all pops of that culture from cultural assimilation completely. Right, so cultural assimilation is, of course, still a thing. It's still in play. But if you want to accept a culture, I mean, you're going to have the issue that they said above, where the cultural happiness for the entire state culture is going to go down a little bit. Each integrated culture will reduce the state culture happiness by 5%. So do you want to do that, especially when these guys are not going to ever integrate? That's a very interesting conundrum. I'd say if your plan is to attack someone like, if you're playing as Macedon, you're planning to attack Phrygia, the Antigonids, or you're planning to attack the Seleucids, there's going to be quite a lot of Macedonian pops there. So you might not want... No, if you're playing as Rome, you might want to integrate Macedonian because there's quite a lot of them. I'd say out of all the pops, it's probably Macedonian that has the most. Maybe actually, no, the Indian one, Atavi, or I don't know. I forget. I don't play in India very much. But you want to integrate these big pop groups. And then there's some that you'll never integrate, purely not because they're inferior or you don't like them or anything, but purely because there's just not enough of them. That worries me a little bit, actually. Since they're considered part of your state culture, pops from integrated cultures will also get the happiness modifier that your state culture pops get. This means that for each culture you integrate, you dilute the extra happiness that your state culture enjoys. You dilute it. Is extra happiness like spread out, like from inventions and such? It's a bit interesting. It's a bit weird. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about diluting. I'm not sure I understand that entirely. So, gaining new integrated cultures. In order for a culture to be granted citizen or noble rights, it first needs to be made up of a sizable part of the total population in your country. Okay, so you need to actually have it be a pretty big amount first. Unlike the effect of changing civic rights for a culture, normally integration is not instant. Instead, progress will build up over time, with the total time being dependent on the number of pops in your country of the culture, and as long as integration is in progress, you'll suffer a negative stability penalty. So it'll be ticking downwards. Okay. On the road to integration, you'll also run into events that pose you with choices relating to the integration of the new culture. You could be asked to take in a new great family from the culture, to adopt one of their deities, or to make concessions of some sort. Integrated cultures can also be lost at a very high cost to cultural happiness. You say they can be lost, but like how? How can they be lost? This is important. Are they lost via just, losing all of the pops through war or civil war or something? Because that is it event based? Is there a new revolution based kind of thing going on? I need more information about this, please. So, related changes. In order to accommodate the changes we're doing now to how happiness works in regard to cultures, we're making some related changes. Base assimilation of culture will be reduced sharply, similar to how we did the same for religious conversion in the Archimedes update, and we'll be also splitting up the cultures and culture groups in the world. These are the biggest changes to culture setup in the update. So, as I predicted, they are indeed splitting up the Gallic group. The Celtic culture group has been broken up into Gallic and a Pannonian group, and also this one is new as well. This one here is the Pannonian, this one's the Gallic. This one is new and it hasn't got a name yet. I need to know its name. The Persian culture group will be split into 3 new groups: Iranian, the Anatolian, and the Caucasian. This is fantastic. This is things that people have been asking for a very long time, because it felt very strange that the Armenians were a part of the Persian culture group and the Phrygians part of the Persian culture group. It just never made any real sense. So, no, I love this. This is really good stuff. That's fantastic. The Nilotic culture group has been renamed to Egyptian, with 3 subcultures in it. So we now have Fayumic, Libyan, and Sahidic. They've got Blemian down there, and you can't really see down in this area. There's Botanuic, something like that. I'm not sure. I guess eventually we'll find out. Scythian culture has been split up as well. There's a lot of different cultures here. Thisigietian, that seems new. Sakan and Dahe, I think were there before, right? I'm gonna have to check that. Dahe was, but Sakan wasn't. So there are some changes here. And the Egyptian group you can see there, and the Meroitic. And then Armenian, all of this. This is such a huge culture group. It's crazy. It's really good to see them splitting all of that up. So Legian also seems new as well there. Yeah, good stuff there. I like that one. It's still a really big culture group, but you have to imagine, well, not imagine, you have to remember that a lot of this is uncolonized territory. Lastly, a new Prachian group has been broken out into the eastern part of the Aryan culture group in India, based around the countries using the Eastern Indo-Aryan court dialects. A new Atavi culture has also been added for the tribal peoples in the east-central inland. So, yeah, it's a good job that all of these have been broken up a bit. They were, especially, it was Avanti, wasn't it, that was the primary culture of Maurya. It was fucking huge. There are so many Avanti pops here. So yeah, having that change is very, very welcome indeed. So, that's all for today. We hope that these changes taken together will let you interact with the people of your country in a more interesting and believable way, and that the Menander update will bring an end to the rule that all great empires must be monocultural ones in Imperator. This is, however, just the first of diaries on the new update. More will follow in the coming weeks. Yes, I am so looking forward to this. This is good stuff. This is good stuff. I honestly have nothing to complain about here. I just need more information and more understanding, I guess. I'm going to have to reread this a few times before I really get what's going on. Being able to play with it, of course, that's going to be the big test, isn't it? But I am interested in hearing what you guys think. So, do you like this change to culture? Do you think it is an improvement to the game? Do you, as I do, really love that Phrygia is being renamed to something that isn't Phrygia? Because I'm very much in favor of that. Let me know down in the comment section below. Leave a like if you liked the video, and if you want to see more Imperator news and updates, then drop me a sub, because those are useful, and then you'll get to see the videos. It's a pretty good little system, actually. Anyway, I will see you guys in the next one. Have a good one.